Hi, my name is April. Let's talk about books. Today I'm going to be answering questions from the Classics book tag. Let's dive right in. Question 1. What is an overhyped classic that you really didn't like? For this one, I chose The Prime of Miss Jean Brodie by Muriel Spark. I don't know necessarily that this is an overhyped classic, but it's certainly one that's often recommended to educators. I'm a teacher myself, but I found Miss Jean Brodie to be off-putting. She's a terrible teacher and an even worse human being. Therefore, I had a very negative reaction to this book. It may be a classic for some educators, but not for this one. The second question is, what is your favorite time period to read about? For me, that is the early 1900s, about 1900 through World War I. I've already done a video about women in World War I, which I will link up here as well as in the description box below. But the reason that I like this particular time period is that it's a time when women were really starting to agitate for their rights. They were starting to demand that they be given access to areas that they'd been closed off from before. They were showing themselves capable of doing the work that men had denied them previously, and that is an era that I really enjoyed, learning about the changing roles of women. Question number 3 is, what is your favorite fairy tale? And I really had to think about this one. When I was a kid, my favorite fairy tale to read was The Little Mermaid, and I liked its bittersweet ending. It is not like the Disney version at all. Everything that happens is magnified in the written version. The pain is greater, the heartache is greater, and of course it does not have a happy ending. But I really liked that. Question number 4, what is the classic you're most embarrassed about not having read? Okay, so I teach theater and I was an English major, so Shakespeare is going to figure prominently in this entire tag, but for this particular question, the one that I haven't read is Hamlet, and a lot of people consider that to be Shakespeare's masterpiece. Not me though, because I hate Hamlet. That dude is a whiner. He treats his girlfriend terribly. He's a complete tool, and I get that his dad died while he was away at college and he came back and his mom is surprised married to his uncle, but you know, everybody's having problems, Hamlet. So I have not read the entire play. I've seen it performed a couple of times. I've read abridged versions, I've read prose retellings, but as far as the play itself, no, I haven't read it, and I don't plan to, honestly. I just can't give my time to that. Number 5, what are the top 5 classics that you would like to read soon? Again, with a Shakespeare, I chose The Merchant of Venice because that's one that I haven't read, but also just for my theater classes, I'm going with a couple of Greeks, Sophocles' Electra. Obviously, I've read Oedipus, I've read Antigone. I skipped Oedipus at Colonus because I just didn't care about him anymore after that, but I am excited to read this one. Then Medea by Euripides, another play that I've never read, although I have read a children's version of this, interestingly. This is not a children's story. Then going further in theater history, Oliver Goldsmith's She Stoops to Conquer. This is one that I've never read, and honestly, I haven't read a lot of 1800s theater, which is terrible. I've read Shaw. I think I've read a different Goldsmith, but I haven't read this one, and so that's something that I'm trying to rectify. And then finally for this one, A Long Day's Journey into Night by Eugene O'Neill. This is one that I've often heard of as a companion for The Death of a Salesman, which is my favorite play of all time. So Eugene O'Neill though tends to be really, really dark, and his characters are, I find it hard to empathize with his characters the way that I do with Arthur Miller's. So I'm really interested to see how this goes with that one. Number 6 is, what is your favorite modern book or series based on a classic? I'm actually going to be kind of anticipatory about this one because I'm going to go with the Hogarth Shakespeare series, which are prose retellings and updated versions, I think, of Shakespeare's plays. I've only read one, Vinegar Girl by Anne Tyler, and that is a retelling of The Taming of the Shrew. And I actually thought it was pretty good. It was much better than I expected it to be. That is a very problematic play in terms of its themes of patriarchy and misogyny and sexism. But I thought that she really did a good job updating it and making it a little less icky. Others in this series include The Gap of Time by Jeanette Winterson, which is based on The Winter's Tale. Shylock is My Name by Howard Jacobson. That's the reason that I want to read The Merchant of Venice, so that I can do that before reading this retelling. Hagseed by Margaret Atwood, which is based on The Tempest. The one that I'm most excited to read is called New Boy. It's by Tracy Chevalier, and that is based on Othello, which is my second favorite Shakespeare. And then others that haven't had their titles or their authors, I don't think, announced yet include Macbeth, King Lear, and friggin' Hamlet. Number 7 is, what is your favorite movie version or TV series that's based on a classic? Hands down, Sense and Sensibility with Emma Thompson. That is one of my top 5 favorite movies of all time, classic or no. I think that it is a beautiful film in terms of its pacing. I think that she did a great job of kind of editing down the material so that it flows nicely. I think the cinematography is absolutely beautiful. I think that the cast is perfect. Everything about this movie I love, up to and including the noise that she makes when Edward declares his love for her. I love it. I will not hear anything said against it. That is my favorite adaptation of a classic. But on the other hand, number 8, what is the worst classic to movie adaptation? No question, Scarlet Letter starring Demi Moore. This is an embarrassment from beginning to end. I think that The Scarlet Letter is an amazing novel. I love it so much, but a lot of it is internalized, and perhaps it could have been a good movie in the hands of a gifted director and a gifted actress, but that was not the case with this particular adaptation. And so they added a whole bunch of stuff that wasn't in the source material. It was so bad. I can feel myself getting angry about it right now. It was so bad. Everybody who was involved in that should be ashamed of themselves. Honestly, they owe me personally an apology. Okay, number 9. What are the favorite editions that you would like to collect more of? That's not really a thing for me. I don't really care very much about it, but as I was looking at my bookshelves, I did notice that I have several of these Penguin Classics editions, and I think that I just picked these up because they were easy to find in the bookstore, but this is Barbara Pimm's Excellent Woman, and this is Stella Gibson's Cold Comfort Farm, and I have tons more of these. But one of the reasons that I do like these is that aesthetically it's very pleasing when they're all facing out to have a shelf that looks like this. Like, for one tiny space in my life, I have things that are together and they look good, and everything is organized, and it's just representative of this minute bit of non-chaotic happenstance in my life. And honestly, we can all use some of that, can't we? Finally, number 10 is an underhyped classic that you would recommend to everyone. All right, so I picked a book, and it's Ernest J. Gaines' A Lesson Before Dying, and it reads like it is written in an older time, but it's actually written in 1993. I was surprised to see when I looked at the publication date. But I'm going to go ahead and recommend it anyway as a modern classic. This is a book that takes place in the 1940s, and it is about an African-American man named Jefferson who is at the scene of a crime when a murder is committed, and he is wrongfully accused, and then he is convicted of the murder even though he is innocent. And at his trial, his lawyer, who clearly doesn't care about him at all, says that they would just as soon execute a hog as execute Jefferson. And he really takes that to heart. That's such a demoralizing statement, and he really starts to feel as though he's less than a man, as though he's subhuman. And so some of the women in his community are very worried about him as he is in jail awaiting impending execution. And so they ask another African-American man named Grant to go and talk to him and to try and rebuild his confidence and try to rebuild Jefferson's idea of himself as a man. And so this novel is about some of their conversations. It's also about the community reactions to what's happened to Jefferson. One of the things that Grant does, fairly or unfairly, is tell Jefferson that he's kind of a model in the community in terms of the way that he faces his imprisonment as he faces his execution. And I personally think that's a lot of responsibility to place upon him, but it is kind of the whole novel is this moral and ethical dilemma. I think that this is very timely for now when we're talking about racial injustice and about police brutality and about wrongfully being accused of and convicted of crimes. I love this book. I think it is so important. I wouldn't say that I enjoyed it, but it is a very quick read. I had to sit with it for about a week afterwards and think about what had been said, and I mean, it really causes you to reevaluate what is going on, not just in your own life, but in like society at large. So, hands down, this is an excellent book, and I would recommend it to anybody, classic or no. So those are my answers for the Classics book tag. If you've read any of these, please let me know in the comments and we can talk about it. If you want to do the Classics book tag, then consider yourself tagged. I certainly did. And goodbyes are always awkward, so end of video.